Hi, it's me, Ingrid P, and welcome to CBT therapy episode 4, which I'm going to be doing at my desk. So I have my two hands free. I prop the phone up against glass. I want to remind you guys that I am not a mental health professional. I'm just a medical student going through her own therapy for social anxiety. I'm following this book called Social Phobia, and it's a Swedish book that doesn't exist in English. Effective Help with Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. So I'm still on chapter 3, but this chapter was super huge, so I had to split it in two parts. And this part is going to be about questioning your thoughts or like challenging your thoughts, basically. The automatic negative thoughts that rule your life, basically, that create all of this anxiety for you that doesn't really need to be there always. So basically, the first step to this is saying how believable do you think that these are when you are in the moment. In the moment, you feel like these things are super believable because, well, you came up with these ideas, obviously. So I have a lot of these. I've worked myself up to two pages that look like this. 1 page, 2 pages that I've done over the course of 5 days. And I'm supposed to choose one of these, but it's like difficult. But I've been putting some kind of believability score or whatever onto these. I did talk about this in the last episode, which was when I went to town for a massage. And my most scary one, which I rated 70 out of 100, was that I'm sure that the people there think that I look weird and that I have weird clothes on. That was one of the things that came up. Another one that was pretty high, like that kept coming back, is like everybody thinks I'm useless or worthless or that kind of thing. So that one was an important one. Another one is when I was driving, I didn't put the, I don't know how you call it. Anyway, the car shut down because I don't really know how to use the stick shift. So I kind of, like, the car stopped in the middle of the road and there was a bus behind me. And the bus was going slowly, and so he saw me stop, so he stopped. But I was so worried that everybody on the bus was going to be angry at me because I don't know how to drive a car. Even though it says, like, that I'm just training and driving, I was worried about that. Mostly this week, I've been just pretty, like, hopeless, so and angry. So I wasn't really anxious about a lot of things, but I have been feeling the stress. So first you have to put, like, the how strong is it? So, and how strong are your other feelings, like anger and that kind of thing. So there are a lot of times where I was, like, awkward or sad or feeling embarrassed, that kind of thing. And so then it tells you about strategies to question these negative automatic thoughts. And so how to be flexible in our thoughts. So can I create new thoughts? Can I see if these thoughts are realistic to think of in these situations? And so at first it feels like we have to sit and think. Like, we can't just say, oh, well, these thoughts are shit. We have to think, like, why do we have these thoughts? Why do we believe them? Is this true? And so this is a way to realize that, these thoughts maybe aren't that realistic, and that way you can, the anxiety will feel more manageable. The goal of this is not to make all anxiety disappear, because that's unrealistic. Okay, so this is difficult. This book says that it's difficult, but where we're trying to get away from the irrational thought processes that we are in. And we don't want the circle that I discussed in my first 2 episodes. The second episode, the circle of anxiety. Okay, we don't want to get into that. So first we have to prove. Okay, so we have to use what is facts and what are just guesses, what are hypotheses. If we have guesses and hypotheses, we have to prove them, like scientists do. So we have to find how believable are they? And we have to find a balance. So find what are my proof, what are my counter arguments, my arguments, counter arguments. So the arguments are what are the actual proof that you have that this thought is true? Is it just facts? Okay, we're only focusing on facts. We're not talking about guesses or interpretations. Okay, and then you think, well, will everybody find this to be a fact? Are you going too fast in your judgments? And then once you've found the positive or the arguments that you have or it's pretty negative, the arguments that you have for why these negative automatic thoughts would be true, then you also have to find the counter arguments. So what makes you think that maybe this argument isn't totally true? Is there something that you've ignored? And so then you talk about your experiences. What experiences do you have? Okay, what are the facts? Have you been in other situations where you've had that thought? What happened then? Probably not what you thought was going to happen, okay? Not the terrible thing that you thought was going to happen. Has the thing that you've been worried about happened before? Maybe it did. Maybe something has happened before that was bad, but maybe there's a difference between that time and this time. And you can't say that it always happens that way. Maybe it does always happen that way, or most of the time that way. But you can learn things from if there's a mistake that has given you bad consequences. So that was one thing. And also, if you look back on the situation in 5 years' time, you think that you would see this in another way. What alternative perspectives do we have? Okay, there are other ways to see the situation. Would another person see it differently? What would you say to a friend who was going through the same thing, being in the same situation? You would probably be nicer to the friend than to yourself, unfortunately. What is the worst thing that can happen? And would that be that bad? If you didn't feel so much anxiety, would you think differently about the situation? Often our thoughts are dictated by our moods, and so that's a good way to see this. So here they have some examples. They have I'll never find a partner because I look bad. And then you're okay, does everybody look good? um, like, do you sometimes see people who you find attractive? Like, not everybody who are in a partnership are attractive, at least in your eyes. So how realistic is this thought? You know, how many other people would have that thought? Not many, maybe, you know, maybe a lot of people find you attractive. You know, it's not, these things are not facts. Another thing is that when you have a negative thought, this is point number 2 in here, try to see where you come into a thought trap, like I discussed in episode 3, okay? So are you thinking too black and white? Are you thinking like differently, you know? Maybe it doesn't really meet the reality. So if you think, for example, that I totally failed my presentation, and if you're like thinking, are you really 100% sure that is true? Maybe it's not like 100% sure that is true. So maybe it's better to say I didn't perform as well on this presentation as I wanted, but it doesn't mean it was a total failure. Okay. Then there's also how do you define certain things in these automatic thoughts? Because sometimes we have labeling, which is one of the thought problems that can come. So, for example, if you think that you're dumb, okay, you say, I'm dumb, or like, I'm shit, or I'm an idiot. You know, like, what is shit, okay? What is being unintelligent? What is being dumb? You know, what is it, you know? Is being dumb doing dumb things? Well, you don't. You do some pretty intelligent things. You know, you don't. If everybody in the world was dumb, then like what would happen? Like these kinds of, since we're already in this like what will happen stage, you know, we can think like, okay, well, maybe I'm just as dumb as everybody else because I'm human, you know. You can put it in very different perspectives, you know, like, well, there's maybe no definition of dumbness, okay? There isn't a definition, so how can I qualify myself as dumb when actually that doesn't mean anything, okay? I think the design of peace, we can do this well, okay? We're used to this kind of stupid thinking, stupid, how do you define stupid? Define that. So, we do this thought process very often, I think, as any users. So it's not totally. So we just have to use it the positive way and not in the negative way. Then there's taking at a person's perspective. You know, what would a friend or somebody that you love in your family do in like that situation, or what would you say to a person like that? You'd probably say pretty nice things, you know? If somebody says, like, your best friend says, like, oh, I had a terrible presentation, I was a total idiot, okay? And then, like, maybe you would say, like, oh, aren't you being a little bit hard on yourself? You know, it probably didn't go that bad. Maybe you look nervous, but that doesn't mean that it was a failure. And it doesn't mean that other people all hate you now. I mean, you probably did a better impression than you think. You know, that kind of thing, you know, be nice to yourself, okay? And also, like, isn't it a little bit hypocritical, you know, to call yourself incompetent or call yourself dumb and weak when, like, would you do that to other people, you know? I mean, would you say that they're dumb and weak for having a hard time during a presentation? You know, maybe maybe that's something else to work on, you know? It's not, I think that we judge ourselves way too hard. And the next one is the worst scenario, okay? What is the worst thing that can happen? Okay, like that my presentation is a failure, you know, or I get fired from my job. And it's like, okay, and what will happen then? You know, how will I be able to handle that? Then you'll probably be like, I won't be able to handle that. I'll just be a mess, you know. But is it as bad as I would imagine it? Would it actually be of any importance in like a few years' time? Would it really be the end of the world if that thing happened, you know? And here they give an example of somebody who says that, like, I'll never ask this guy out on a date, okay? I'm sure that he would say no. And then he says that, well, the client, which is us, I guess, says, like, I wanted to ask him out a few times. I wanted to ask him out to go and eat, but I couldn't. And then the therapist is like, would it stop you from asking? What do you think would happen if you asked him out? And she says, I'm mostly scared that he wouldn't be interested in me. I would be in an awkward situation and I'd have to, like, excuse myself. And he would probably think that I'm really crazy and insane, and he'd also feel pity for me. And the therapist is like, yeah, well, there are many ways that you can react, you know? Maybe he would think that you're, like, feel sorry for you and that kind of thing. But, you know, even if he thought that you were weird and pathetic, what would happen? Well, then the client is like, oh, I didn't even think that far. You know, often we haven't thought that far. And but then she says, like, it would feel awful, like terrible. And then the therapist is like, well, would that mean that you're that you're pathetic and insane? Well, no, probably not. The therapist is then like, well, would it mean that other people also think that you're insane and pathetic? Well, the client is like, no, probably not. And then the therapist is like, why? The client says, well, I haven't really thought about other people's opinion of this. I know that my friends don't think that I'm pathetic. At least I hope that they don't think that I'm pathetic. Therapist is then, well, if you're not dumb and pathetic, then why would he say no to you? The client then thinks, well, maybe he already has a date, you know, maybe he already has a girlfriend. And the therapist is like, yeah, that might be one thing. But then what would actually happen if you were pathetic and not worth spending time with? And the client is like, well, that's maybe not the end of the world. It wouldn't be that terrible. Not everybody needs to like me. Okay, maybe we just aren't compatible. And then like the client realizes that, of course, it would feel awful at first, but then, like, it wouldn't like make her fall to the ground dying, you know? She like, it would feel awful, but like she'd get through it. She can handle things. Okay, so this is a little bit how, if we go into the catastrophe thoughts, we realize that actually a catastrophe is something that we can handle. Okay, it's not actually a catastrophe because we are not dying. Okay, so it will be awful. Things often are awful when you make mistakes, but it's okay because it's not the end of the world and the things aren't that big a deal. So that is how they tell us how to do this. Then they give us a sheet here, which is how to challenge your negative thoughts, okay? And I'm going to fill this in, and then I'm going to come back, okay? Okay, here we go. So I spent a few minutes doing this. So I'm using the example of everybody on the bus behind me when I got a motor stop. Well, basically, the car didn't just stopped, and because I didn't go from the first gear into the second gear, right? There was a bus behind me, and everybody. So my thought was, everybody on the bus behind me is angry at me and hates me. Okay. So how much do I think about this thought? Well, at the moment, when I was there, I put it as a 70 out of 100 because it was, well, I was really stressed out. I thought that this was believable. The other feelings I had was stress, 90%. My pulse went up 40%. It probably did go up 40%, but you know, it was a feeling at least. I was angry at myself, 80%. The things that count for, that are my arguments, is, well, he has to stop on the way. People on the bus are sometimes in a rush in a hurry. And, like when I was looking in the back rear view mirror, the guy looks, the conductor looked a little bit angry. The counter argument is probably a lot of people on the bus haven't even like noticed that they stopped. A lot of people don't care because as long as it's safety, like it's like I didn't crash or do anything stupid like that, or like irresponsible. Some people just don't care because they're not in a rush. Okay, they're not in a hurry, and just being delayed by a few seconds is not going to make them late. A lot of people relate to new beginners, you know. I mean, I have a sign on the back of my car that says like that I'm training, and also they don't know me, so they don't even know like the car that I'm driving. They've never seen me. They don't know my name. So like, why would they care about me, you know? Why would they be angry at me? Why would they hate me, you know, without even knowing me? Doesn't even matter, you know? Then there are the thought traps that I fell into. It was black and white, you know, everybody on the bus hates me and is angry at me. Personalizing, like they hate me and not like just their general life, you know. They hate me because I'm creating a problem, you know. Disqualifying. I'd done a lot of good driving until then, and I'm like thinking that like everything is shit, okay. I'm also like disqualifying that like I didn't actually cause a chaos. All I did was I stopped in a road. It wasn't even a really fast road, so I did not cause an accident. I also did manage to stop at the light, which some people don't even do. So I did a lot of good things, even if I did a kind of a mistake. Reading in people's minds is another of these thought traps, which I basically did by thinking that people behind me were angry and hated me. Okay, I can't know what they think. Then there's feeling-based thought. Just because I feel like everybody is angry at me doesn't mean that it's like true, you know. Making things out of proportion. So just because I stopped on the road for a few seconds doesn't mean that like I created a terrible chaos. So that was everything that I could find. You could also argue for a lot of other different traps. And then the alternative thought. Okay, the thing that is a little bit more balanced. Okay, I should have been a little bit more careful and like thought a little bit better out how I was going to get onto the road. But it's okay to make mistakes because I'm a beginner and I need to learn. And it actually didn't inconvenience that many people. And I don't think a lot of people would have thought that I'm like a bad driver just because I made a mistake. They probably weren't angry at me, and they probably did not hate me. And even if they did, it's not that important because they don't know me. Okay. So then you have to do an evaluation of this, and it's the feelings. So now we've talked about these feelings that I had: stress, anger at myself, my pulse goes up. But so you should talk about the same feelings that you had at first, but also the new feelings that can come up. So the pulse thing disappeared, okay? The relief is a new emotion that I felt, and I put that to 70% because it was a relief to feel that I wasn't like, and people weren't angry at me and hating me, okay? And that it was like an irrational thought. To kind of laugh at myself, which was at 10%, because, well, it was a pretty silly thought to have, you know? But, you know, it's okay. My stress went down from 90% to 20%, and the anger at myself went down from 80% to 40%. I'm still a little bit on the fence because I'm still a little bit angry at myself, even though I thought differently, because I know better, but and I could have caused an accident, so I still can't really let that go, but it's better at least. And then how much do I think like my automatic thought was believable and true? It went from 70% to 15%. So I think that it's better. It still hasn't like lost all credibility. You know, I'm sure that some people on the bus, you know, I might have been a little bit angry that like that I came in front of them and almost led to an accident. But actually, it was much better than before I did this exercise. So I think that this is a pretty good sheet. I'm sorry that it doesn't exist in English. But if you follow the steps that I've followed, then hopefully you'll get somewhere. And then I have to still do my goals for my therapy, but these are going to be my own. So I'll probably not talk about them until I've gone through them with my therapist. So that was it for this episode 4. This is really long. If you're sticking through this, like you're basically going through therapy. Because this has helped me like fill in this sheet. Okay. I'm going to go see my therapist in 2 days, so I hope for the best. Okay, have a great day, everybody. Bye.